Good morning. Welcome to the Celtic Way morning briefing live. It's Tuesday, the 14th of November. I'm Tony Haggerty at Haggerty10 on the X or the Twitter handle, and I'm joined today, and I'm delighted to say we're going to be joined on every Tuesday moving forward by the wonderful Kevin McKenna. Yeah, woo, woo, woo. Excellent, loving that. Kevin, how are you, sir?
Yeah, good, all things considered. Still top of the league, but
Yeah. So get that in the diary, folks. Tuesday will be Kevin McKenna Day on the Celtic Way morning briefing, so that's something to look forward to every week. So yes, indeed, Kevin, lots to talk about. I want to pick your knowledge and brains on everything that's happened Celtic from last Tuesday to this Sunday and moving forward onwards. But first and foremost, we big up our sponsors, and as you can see, MPH Group for all your plumbing, heating and kitchen and bathroom needs. And we'll say the Celtic Way morning briefing is brought to you by MPH Group, and they're Scotland's award-winning family-run all-trade specialist covering all of mainland Scotland. And every service you opt for automatically enters you into MPH's incredible holiday giveaway, and you could win a 7-night stay at the luxurious 5-star Moon Palace Resort in Cancun, Mexico. And with winter rolling in, and if you're thinking of giving your home heating system a boost, MPH has an enticing Navian boiler winter promotion just for you. And if you opt for a Navian boiler installation through MPH Boilers, not only are you choosing top-tier efficiency, but you're also getting a free Navian internet controller, and that little gadget can crank up your boiler's efficiency to an impressive 98%. And the cherry on top of all of that is that they're covering the first year service with no added costs. And if you're wondering why Navian, well, they're gunning for the product of the year at the HNV News Awards, which is the Oscars of the heating world. And to top it all off, the Navian On range comes with up to a 12-year parts and labours warranty. So big shout out to MPH as they're nominated for the Small Company of the Year at the same awards. And MPH even offer flexible finance option. So if you want to gear up for a winter chill, consider making a smart move with MPH and Navian, and you'll find all the links to MPH social media sites and telephone number in the description of this video. Now, Kevin, from one boiler service to a couple of old boilers, how are you, sir? Here we go. Let's talk Celtic. Now, we spoke off air just before we came on, and you said after last Tuesday in the Metropolitano you were quite vociferous on Twitter, which is not usually your bag, but you got a few things off your chest. Was it cathartic for you? Were you happy about that, or were you unhappy at what unfolded?
Nah, you never have. Twitter just, it can be a bit of a sewer at times, and it kind of sucks you in.
Yes.
Even your emotions. I just, there were just aspects of that performance last week which troubled me, notwithstanding that we went down to 10 men relatively early in the game against a very, a top-class team. Yeah, I just remember, in the Brendan Rodgers first era, Barcelona took 7 off us.
Yep.
I think under Neil Lennon they took 6 off us. Paris Saint-Germain took 7, 5-0 at home, and I thought, those days are gone. We've kind of learned lessons, yet more lessons. And also, I don't really place Atletico Madrid in the same category as Paris Saint-Germain or Barcelona. And I think a lot of Atletico fans wouldn't say that this iteration of Atletico Madrid were as good as maybe a few years ago when they got to 2 European Cup finals in 3 years. I just thought, God, one thing that trouble, I've raved about Matt O'Reilly's value to the team, what it gives us. I just thought he I mean, I would never. I'm not accusing anybody of giving up, but not long after we went down to 10 men, the game just passed him by, and he was subsequently hooked. So when you see your most creative player who's not getting even a foot in the game, and the manager sees that as well and takes him off, then you're thinking there's going to be more, because with him went our creativity, and you need a bit of creativity to try and play some of the game in their half when you're down to 10 men and 2-0 down. I felt of the 9 players, was it 9 players we signed over the summer?
Yep.
So 2 of them get a start, and they were just, they were project players, and I know that 1 or 2 of them will come good eventually. But we knew we were going into the Champions League, and the Champions League gets stiffer and stiffer, and despite that, there was always the probability that we were going to go into a game against a club like Atletico Madrid with 2 or 3 players who are completely unproven at that level. I mean, maybe I'm being slightly hypocritical here, because I'm sure I've said on here or in an article that it's one thing identifying areas of the team that need strengthened for the challenge of the Champions League. It's quite another thing, no matter how much money you have, from a team from Scotland, a club from Scotland, getting the sort of players that are ready starters. And I get that, but 6-0. So there was a lot of emotion there, because we're Celtic. You don't expect to beat 6-0, and so I think I might have tweeted that I was wanting to get in touch with my old friend Ewan, the Hearts fan, who writes for The Guardian mainly about golf, to ask him for what coping mechanisms he uses when they get coping, or Tam Cowan with Motherwell, and that kind of puts things in perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That we know that we're going to be extremely limited in Europe for circumstances, because of circumstances again beyond our control. But what we experience occasionally is par for the course for most other clubs in Scotland, who will expect that at 1 or 2 points of the season they're going to get a thumping of Celtic, and they still turn out, and attendances across the board in the SPL are still pretty healthy, compared with similar types of leagues across Europe.
I wrote about the 2 6-0 yesterday. I'll put the piece in the comments section, that kind of quoting Jekyll and Hyde, domestically Imperious and inferior in Europe. You can have a read at that, guys. It's on the I'll put it in the comments section, but it's on the website there. But yeah, I guess that is Celtic kind of get a touch of their own medicine, and that Tuesday night in the Civitas Metropolitano, didn't they? Did you say that other Scottish clubs sort of get Aberdeen, their latest, to suffer that kind of backlash with Celtic winning 6-0 on Sunday? But there was a lot to please you about that performance, I would hope, Kevin, yeah?
Yeah. I suppose away from Europe, you can see that you can see the development of some of our recent purchases. You can see the team beginning to function more as a unit, than at the beginning of the season. I thought Aberdeen set up wrongly, given I think I think we took 3 off them last season, not long after Barry Robson had been appointed. And there was a lot of discussion about, why they set up in a particular way. And, I was disappointed to see them just retreat and hopefully get out of Celtic Park with a 0-0 draw, given Celtic's firepower. But that said, the passing was very crisp. There was great movement. Again, we keep coming back to this, but Scales is proving himself immovable. A first pick. His game continues to develop, and actually, I think he'll get better now that Cameron Carter-Vickers is getting up to speed and
alongside him.
Playing alongside him. Palma. I mean, it was great. Kyogo. I think his injury isn't going to be too.
No.
I think we'll be okay.
What was your thoughts on that, Kevin? That challenge? Did you think it was a red card?
Yeah, I do, because it was reckless. I mean, I'm not saying he went out to do him. No way. There is an argument to say the ball was there to be won, but it was only there to be won after he'd gone through his head.
Yes, it's the definition of endangering an opponent, surely.
Yeah, it's just it was reckless, and because the head's involved.
Yeah,
you wonder what goes through the referee's mind, because those injuries are potentially very serious for the reasons that we all know about, and therefore you would think, well, the authorities want to clamp down and make sure that there is no repeat, that these are verboten. And yeah, I thought it was a red card.
I was more concerned that VAR didn't look at it again.
Yeah, I don't
understand that. I
No.
really don't. And they sufficed, or if they did have a look at it, then they sufficed that yellow was deemed sufficient punishment. I can't for the life of me get my head around it. Because
again, this is, come back to Europe, this is another thing that, you can say, we can have arguments, away from here about whether Celtic get refereed to a different standard than against their closest rivals. But there's something actually I think is more pertinent here, which is that there are tackles every week in Scottish football, challenges every week in Scottish football, not just against us or in games involving us, which referees, and there's clearly an instruction there at the beginning of the season.
Yep.
To indulge a lot of challenges that have been cleared out of the game in Europe. You don't see them in Europe because several years ago, at any decent level in Europe, every player knows those challenges they're just no longer part of the game. I watched Bayern Munich the other week playing Borussia Dortmund. And there was nothing. There's meaty challenges. It's German football. It's a good competitive game, but you just don't get that recklessness.
Yeah.
And so when that becomes part of the DNA of the game, week in, week out, it handicaps all Scotland's teams in Europe, because they're coming up against teams who are playing quite literally in certain aspects a different game from us. And I think as well, when you look at the challenge by Maeda that led to the red card.
Yep.
Now, I'm not one of those that thinks it definitely wasn't a red card. As soon as the tackle was made, I thought
you could be in bother.
We're in some bother here. And yeah, of course the Atletico Madrid player made the most of it. But you don't really see players in the continent making challenges like that. There was no need to make the challenge, because because his opponent is facing his own goal in his own half. I mean, the wee man's challenged as he always does. He's performed heroically and going through 2 challenges. The ball's get slightly ahead of him, and you're going, just leave it. It doesn't matter. There's only one way this guy can go, and it's backwards. But is that a consequence of the sort of way that football is played in Scotland? And I'm not saying here, I'm not blaming Scottish football or the weaknesses of our rivals, or I'm just saying that there is a different in certain aspects of the game. It is different in Scotland, and I think it works to the detriment of any Scottish team playing in Europe against a team who left that style of football behind, or at least where the referees in their leagues left that style of refereeing behind.
I had a fair degree of sympathy for Maida, because I agreed with Brendan Rodgers that and he was talking about the whole computer game refereeing now, and what he saw was a still of Maida's foot going like that, but it wasn't malicious, it wasn't nasty, but that when you see the foot like that, it does put
it's out of context.
It is out of context.
It's not a stage, they're looking at a
challenge. Yeah, exactly.
It's not a stationary game.
Yeah. So, and I had every sympathy for Maida, and I agreed with Brendan Rodgers that the incident was re-refereed because of the commotion that was caused by Atletico. The referee gave him a yellow card because that's what he saw with his own eyes. And I think now that's the whole issue, isn't it? When you see that still, it doesn't look good. But as you say, it was completely taken out of context. I think that's what enraged Brendan Rodgers. And that has a massive effect on what happened next. Celtic go down to 10 men. They end up capitulating, and the game's over as a contest. So I totally agree with your thoughts on that. You don't see that kind of thing happen at all now, do you? Our guys know that if they're as reckless as that, they're walking, aren't they? Bottom line, end of.
And they're trying to, in English football, they're trying to eradicate that, and they've had a degree of that in the past. Well, they're trying to shake it off.
Yeah,
because English football, tight grounds, even the big stadiums are tight up against the park, big crowds, it's raucous, it's English fans expect a certain amount of blood and thunder. It's part and parcel of the English game. But you can see, despite the issues that they've had with VAR and the inconsistencies, you can see that they're trying to usher in a different culture. And that is beginning to pay dividends with the performances of the English team internationally, where they're now contenders for the main for the World Cup, and we couldn't really say that about any English team since the year before '67.
So, Kevin, we're all afraid. We're very afraid. Jude Bellingham and company are giving us cause to.
But that's a consequence. Part about just the kind of the level of sophistication, the way that they're trying to.
He's a wonderful footballer. Yeah, he's a wonderful footballer, Jude Bellingham.
Bellingham, isn't he?
He's just elegant. Yeah,
scary.
Yeah, scary indeed.
How good he is.
Correct. But I mean, the strap line on the topic today is, can Celtic still qualify for the European knockout stage? And the reason I mention that is because Matt O'Reilly was speaking, and you mentioned Matt O'Reilly and how absent he was in the Atletico Madrid game. But he said, this is what he said. He's not giving up, certainly. He says, I think Celtic have played well in Europe Tuesday, and he's talking about the Madrid game. Obviously, wasn't fun for anyone. But Champions League games are always difficult when you have 10 men on the pitch naturally, but especially against top teams. I think if we'd kept 11 on, it would have been a very different game. I know that's hindsight, but I genuinely believe that. I think we showed that home against Atletico for the majority of the game that we were able to go toe-to-toe with them. I don't think you should ever lose a game 6-0, but at the same time, I think we are more than capable of playing at that level. With 2 games left, and we've still got a chance, so we'll give it our all. the ruthlessness we showed on Sunday is something we can take into Europe as well. Now, that's what Matt O'Reilly said. So there is that kind of, they're not giving up on it, Kevin, and they have 2 games left, one in Rome and one against Feyenoord. And I think in order to qualify for even the Champions League in second, the knockout phase, I think they have to go to Rome and win by 2 clear goals and then beat Feyenoord. But so, I mean, they're still in it with. Incredibly, after 4 games and 1 point, Celtic can still qualify for the knockout stages of either tournament. And the way the results have gone, you're saying it's maybe a long shot, but it's still a shot that they've got. And if they put everything into, I think they can go and compete in Rome, and they can beat Feyenoord at home. I really do, but it's no saying it, it's doing it, isn't it? As they say in Glasgow parlance.
Yeah, I think we can beat Feyenoord.
Yeah,
it'd be nice to beat Feyenoord.
Yeah, it would, wouldn't it?
Yeah, there's no reason why we can't beat Feyenoord at Parkhead. I don't think this Lazio team are much better than the one that we beat 2-1 in Rome a few years ago.
Yeah, when Neil Lennon was in charge and Celtic won Europa League group. Yeah,
and I was chatting with a Celtic fan the other day, and we were talking about that game, and it's funny how you sort of the memory plays tricks on you, because he was saying, it was really nervous, and we were a bit lucky, it was to get that last minute goal and still be in it. And I said, well, I mean, I wasn't in Rome, but I watched it, and I don't think we were lucky at all, actually. I mean, I know that Lazio had several chances, but so did Celtic. In fact, after Lazio equalised, didn't they? Yeah. And we played some cracking football that night.
Yeah, we did.
And that goal,
scored 2 great goals as well, to be fair.
Yeah, and that goal was coming.
It
wasn't exactly against the run of play either. So
my abiding memory of that is Chris Sutton in the commentary box, just
that's right,
letting out a Gary Neville type squeal.
Yeah,
it's great when Sham scored, but it was a great finish.
So I agreed. Celtic should have beaten Lazio at Parkhead. Simple as that. And we were maybe slightly naive towards the end. Been a bit maybe too gung-ho. Should have taken the point. But then what do I know? Because they are beatable. 3 points.
Yeah.
The Champions League's at stake. So yeah, I think it wouldn't be a massive shock. It would be. It wouldn't even be entirely unexpected if Celtic beat Lazio, beating them by 2 goals. Well, I suppose if you can beat them by 1 goal, it would be interesting, wouldn't it, if we were a goal up?
Yes.
In the last few minutes, what happens? Because do Lazio think, right, we just defend what we've got, which could play into our hands? Do you know?
Yeah.
I mean, if we were in that situation, I remember we played Hapoel.
Yes.
And we were 5-0 up at Parkhead, and they get 2 late goals. And then you're thinking, but it's still in the bag. I mean, they're not that good. We were 5-0 up at some point in the game. And then watching that game, and they're 2-0 up, and we're not at the races. And then you realise, 1 more goal.
You're in trouble.
What do we do here? Should we start attacking and actually trying to at least look as if we're trying to get a goal and settle it, or do we just mass retreat and hopefully, we escape with the 2-0 and then go through? So, it does seem quite amazing. 1 point out of 4, and we've got more than an outside chance.
Yeah.
It's still borderline, but I wouldn't say it's completely outside.
No, that is correct. I've got some comments coming in. So Hazel Finn. Morning, Hazel. Morning, Tony and Kevin. We'll get to see Kevin on a Tuesday. It certainly will. There you go.
Thank you, Hazel.
Do Hallow LP. Brendan Rodgers has the smarts for Europe, but the players are still learning the ropes. I totally agree with that as well. And Mahesh Raja comes in and says, Feyenoord and Lazio within the reach with the right tactics. Celtic need to back off a hair in pressing intensity and field position to try and win second half momentum and minimise the transition threat. And Patrick McLaughlin, we can still technically get second if we win by 2 goals in Rome and Atletico win their 2 remaining games. Yep, that's true. Patrick McLaughlin says, a win in Rome and it's possible. You never know. Lots of optimism. Robert Gibson shattering that optimism. We're out of Europe. No amount of whatever he will convince me otherwise. Fair enough. Brown Warrior saying, said it many times, under Ange and Brendan, you can't go into Europe with the same tactics and setup as you use at Hamilton and Firth Park. That's a nonsense. And Hazel Finn come back and said, don't think we'll go any further this year in Europe, but the most difficult job for Brendan Rodgers now is to keep the nucleus of the team and improving the areas that are, let's face it, really obvious. For next year, there needs to be a clear out to... so there's kind of a spectrum about the optimism in Europe. Kevin, Stephen Mitzi one coming in. Tony, it's a mega long shot. It's a mega long shot. Wise money's in a narrow defeat in Rome, and in the underwater cabbage salesman saying beat Lazio in the final based on what evidence? Can't score and concede multiple goals every Champions League game. Not won at home in 10 years. Yep, I guess there. Can't deny any of that, Kevin. To be honest.
Yeah. I mean, we've not won a Champions League game at home in 10 years.
Yeah.
And we've only been in the Champions League 3 or 4 of those seasons.
Yeah.
Was it Gordon Strachan's second season where did we lose our first 3 games in the Champions League and somehow qualify? I remember one of those seasons we were in an extremely perilous position, and we managed to kind of do it and get into the last 16.
I think we came from a kind of impossible position to qualify for that. We did it back to back under Gordon Strachan.
Yeah,
not sure about losing the first 3 games, but I know we came from a position of adversity. Pablo 67 comes in and says, "Forget the Champions League, Tony. Concentrate on the league now." I think Celtic always concentrate on the league, to be fair. They've won 11 out of the last 12, so I think that's always the priority. But I'm like Kevin, and I like a lot of Celtic supporters. I want Celtic to be a force in Europe. I want them to be competitive in Europe. I want them to stay in it beyond Christmas in it. And I can't for the life of me understand why they just are not able to do that.
I suppose another mitigating factor that I think has only emerged in the last few years is that, so in 2006, 2007, we had Manchester United, Copenhagen and Benfica.
Yeah.
Strachan's second year because we'd been put out by Art Media the previous season. Then we faced AC Milan in the last 16. And we got to extra time.
Yeah.
Nothing will convince me that we shouldn't have had a penalty late on in that game. And that Milan team went on to win the European Cup. The following season, we had Spartak Moscow in the qualifying round, and then it was Shakhtar Donetsk, AC Milan. Was it AC Milan and Benfica? And then we were beaten by Barcelona quite narrowly, actually, as I recall, in the last 16. Those clubs from those leagues now are at an even bigger level. The top 10 clubs from 10, 15 years ago in Europe are now even better.
Yeah.
They've got more money, and the Champions League, European Cup is their exclusive. Is just their exclusive for their exclusive use. Nobody else out of them will ever win it. While this imbalance in finance and the economy works, and meanwhile, the finances in Scottish football have remained quite static. And Celtic, no matter how much money they make, there's only kind of a very small pool that we can ever fish in terms of transfers.
Yeah,
because those richest 4 or 5 leagues have got richer. So even kind of average teams, teams finishing 9th, 10th. I mean, look at Brighton beating Ajax. I mean, that broke my heart. I mean, good luck to Brighton. A great wee club, except they're not a great wee club by dint of the fact that that they're English in the South Coast. They're one of the richest clubs in Europe. And it broke my heart to see them beating Ajax home and away, because Ajax are just such an amazing club. They do it, they build organically, and I know they'll splash the cash when they need to, but Brighton Hove Albion should not be in the same planet as Ajax. And come on.
The results like that drive a stake in the heart of football, the heart and soul of football, Kevin. Is that what you? And I guess it is an example of money, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it's an example of what I was just saying, that even 10, 15 years ago, the top clubs in the top 4 leagues had access to the super players, but now you've got clubs 7th, 8th, 9th who've got access to these to players, or maybe the players just a kind of degree down. Now, those were players that once upon a time we had a chance of attracting for a couple of seasons to Celtic Park. We don't have that now.
Yeah.
So the imbalance against us is even more intense, and that has to be borne in mind. But Feyenoord are kind of the same sort of club as us. They're beautiful. Even if we don't qualify for the Champions League, of course there's still the Europa League. But more important than that, I think, is just restoring something of our reputation.
Yeah, and
Celtic being beaten 6-0. We're like any other fans of clubs in Europe are like us. They basically see what all the results were. They've all got their favourites. There's a little bit of kind of empathy for certain clubs, and there's a lot of that towards Celtic. So people in other countries look at that and go, what's going on with Celtic?
Yeah,
and we're like, it's not us.
But I looked at the results last week, and Shakhtar won, Barcelona 0, and Copenhagen 4, Man United 3, and that's what gets to me. Celtic never ever seem to pull a result like that out of the bag, European wise in their recent history, and I just say to myself, why? Because you watch them dismantle teams at home playing some lovely football, and I know you can't take in that same approach, but sometimes you just say to yourself, well, how can't you just be better on the Europeans? And I get that they're playing a calibre of opposition. I understand all that, and I understand that these players are technically gifted and better, but I'm just talking about sometimes the failure to do the basics on the European stages is Celtic's downfall. It's not the fact that they're playing particularly badly. Most of the time it is, and then as one of the commenters said, they seem to lose goals in clusters.
That's true. That's
2s and 3s, isn't it? It's not just they lose one goal, they lose 2s and 3s, and they never ever give themselves a chance to then go on and win matches. And I get that both Lazio and Atletico Madrid, and that's what annoys me, because they played really well in both of those home games, and those games were there for the taking.
Yeah.
I think, and you'll look back at those two and you think, okay. And then that's why results like Shakhtar and Copenhagen's annoy me, because I think Celtic are, it's margins, isn't fine margins, it's fractions, it's inches, but they just can't seem to get on the right end of those kind of results when they're close calls.
I mean, I would say in the case of Shakhtar, they've got access to a lot.
I know they've got a lot of money, yeah. I get that too. And I know they bring in a lot of Brazilian players, don't they?
Yes. Yeah.
They kind of exploit that market, don't they? And I'm aware of that. So yeah, but
and Man U, did they go down to? They
went down to 10 because
Yeah.
Marcus Rashford get sent off, didn't he, when they were 2-0 up? So again, I suppose there was extenuating for that. But even still, Copenhagen still had to come back into the game.
Yeah,
They
true.
scored twice within about 2 or 3 minutes to get themselves level after 2-0. You know, so that kind of thing.
Yeah. Then you're maybe looking at a mentality issue.
Yeah.
Well, there's that. There's the mentality issue, but there's also the fact that. So we're sitting here and we're saying, okay, like last season. So last season, Celtic played very well in most of the group games.
Yeah.
Played really well against Real Madrid for 55 minutes. Played really well despite the 5-1 scoreline, Celtic played some cracking football in the Bernabeu.
Yeah.
But it was the most eccentric refereeing. Makes our lot, look like collegiate, but we also have to face up to the fact that for next season, we can never be guaranteed that our best players from this season are going to be with us.
Still there, yeah. Yep.
We just can't, no matter how much those players love being here. We're a selling club if somebody comes in with the right money. So you can't, we talk about learning the lessons from this season and using this as a platform. Some of the good football, some of the displays. Next season, the team will be tighter. There'll be a couple of additions, bit of strengthening in key areas. Great, but that all assumes that your top performers this season are going to be there next season, and we can never guarantee that.
Yeah, and that's the big problem, isn't it, moving forward? And I think a lot of the players, like the cut of Brendan Rodgers, Gibbon, might be persuaded to stay on and see where he can take them in terms of Europe. But I also think that when he came in, there was I wouldn't say a song and dance made about Europe, but Europe was one thing they were targeting really when he first came in. And you look at the window, and then you look at certain positions, and you say to yourself, had they brought in 2 or 3 players, quality players, that could have made a difference, and certainly in the first 3 Champions League games.
Yeah.
The away game at Feyenoord and the home games to Lazio and Atletico Madrid, I think you maybe rue the fact that you didn't maybe get at least 2 game-changing players. Game-changing players in our definition of the word, but players that could have helped your cause for those first 3, certainly Champions League matches. And then, so you don't know the answers to that. Did Brendan Rodgers ask? He wasn't given the money to go and get whoever he wanted. There's all sorts of, there's more questions than answers, isn't there? But you just know, and you said it before, that they knew they were going into the Champions League. It's always tough. And I'm not saying spend money, spend 10 million, 12 million pounds on players. I don't want to see Celtic be reckless like that. But I do think that at some point you have to turn around and say, okay, there are certain players within our financial parameters that we have to maybe push the boat out and try and get in order to try and progress, especially when you have a new manager that comes in and says, we want to progress and we want to make sure we're in Europe after Christmas. I didn't see any evidence of that in terms of the preparation for that then, Kevin.
No. We spent 9 million on Edouard.
Yep. Now, people talk about £6 million being, 6-7 million being the kind of the ceiling for Celtic. 9 million for Edouard with Rodgers, yeah, but Celtic were spending that 20 years ago in the likes of Hartson and Lennon and Sutton.
Yeah.
So, again, you say to yourself, all right. So, I still think a club who made a big song and dance about the fact they had a lot of money in their accounts as well could have pushed the boat out slightly further for the manager to prepare them more fully for this Champions League group stage section. I'll stand by that. And you are where you are in the group table, possibly because of the fact that you maybe didn't bring in that quality that could have made a difference, especially in the first 3 games.
If Celtic finish bottom of this group, then the entire support is entitled to ask serious questions of the board. I mean, we went in. I've got to say, when that draw was made, I thought we've got a half decent chance of finishing second. And by the way, of all the top seeds that we could have had, you know, I'm looking at Atletico and think, you know, and on a good day, we might even have finished top. You know, of all the top seeds, Atletico were amongst the weakest. And we then a team from Italy that we've beaten home and away. Yep. And we've got Feyenoord who are, you know, like us.
And Feyenoord were a pot 1 team, weren't they? Because Atletico Madrid.
Actually, Feyenoord were a pot 1 team.
So I thought,
honestly, if we finish bottom, the board have got serious questions to answer about their ambition, because by any measure, that would be Celtic grossly underperforming.
Yep.
Grossly underperforming. And Brendan Rodgers would then have questions to ask of the board. And I could see Brendan leaving next season if he doesn't get the answers he's looking for. I'm sure, you know, given his intelligence, he will be already scheming to look at certain positions, and will have hopefully tasked our scouting operation, such as it is, to give him options in several of those key positions. And that will be happening now, and probably has been for a few weeks.
Yeah.
But then let's see what happens. But then you never get on, you know, that's the thing. And we kind of sign up for this, don't we? We're schmucks, really. Because, you know, in no other field I can think of, politics, economics, business, public sector, does an outfit, an organisation get away with so little communication with the fans, you know, no serious answers to questions. We know that the AGM will not get anything. It's a card vote. To get them over the line of anything, it's a bit tenuous. You know, we pay quite a lot of money, all tens of thousands of us, for our season tickets, and we just accept that this organisation that we love, in which we keep going, will never ever answer any of the questions that we've got. You know, basic questions like, you know, what's the ambition for next season? What sort of conversations did you have with the manager? Well, that's confidential. Oh, we know there has to be a certain amount of business confidentiality, because you don't want to let your opposition know what's going on. But the opposition we're talking about is one other club here. It's not not as if there's clubs in Europe going, right, sending scouts to the Celtic AGM to see if there's any tidbits, right, just in case they draw us the following season in the Champions League. So there's just no openness. No,
I think they just want to draw Celtic in the Champions League because of the fact that the board lacks ambition, and
there's zero accountability. And I can't think of any other business in the private or the public sector, the third sector, where, and it's not just Celtic, of course, where these organisations have zero accountability on behalf of the people who actually pay good money to keep them.
I just think they fail to prepare Celtic, and they fail to make Celtic the best version of themselves that they can be on that stage. And again, I go back to it. Bumping your gums about having 72 million in the bank is all good and well. And I'm not saying Celtic to go out and spend money on 12 and 15 million pound players, but you are, you are looking for some return on that, some some of that money to be reinvested in a team who are possibly 2 or 3 players away from winning those first 3 games in your Champions League group section. Winning them, not just, I'm talking about winning them. I mean, Martin O'Neill's team went out with 9 points, the first ever time Celtic competed in the Champions League. You get 9 points now, you're topping your group. You're certainly not exiting before Christmas, and that's the kind of thing that galls me. Martin O'Neill's team was so unlucky to go out with 9, one of the few teams that have gone out with 9. So if you know that that kind of points threshold can possibly guarantee going through, then you throw everything to win your home games, don't you? Because you can be a force in Europe in your home games, and you look at that Lazio and Atletico Madrid game, you could conceivably have taken 6 points from them. Don't care what anybody says.
Another thing worth considering is that, again, despite the fact that we're hamstrung by economics, on the other hand, a lot of other clubs in Europe would like to be in our position, which is virtual guarantee of European football, a virtual guarantee at the moment of Champions League football, where you go into the season knowing that we just have to be ahead of one other club to get into the Champions League. So that would give you a certain amount of assurance, a certain amount of stability in terms, it kind of lowers the risk. It's not like, you're an Aston Villa, for instance, in England, where Aston Villa are sitting 5th in the Premiership. So they've got a decision to, clubs like them, maybe even Everton in a good season, do we throw the bank at getting into the Champions League places?
Yeah.
And risk a Leeds United from 20 years ago. Remember what happened to them?
Yeah, get that.
We don't have that risk element. And, and I'm not being deliberately, not being unkind or insulting to Rangers, but Rangers have got issues, financial issues, which handicap them as well. So the advantage for the foreseeable future is with Celtic, which basically means that there's a far better than even chance that every season for the foreseeable future we get into the Champions League.
So if that's the case, then your ambition should be a wee bit higher.
Yeah, I mean, it allows us a chance.
Getting there, and you should be aiming to, become a name in Europe again.
Well, we can take a qualified risk here. It's like how can I put this in political terms? So in 1997, Tony Blair won by such a landslide that it was a virtual 2, probably 3-term government, no matter what was happening. Labour won by so many seats that a second term was virtually guaranteed, and probably a third term, as happened. Therefore, some of us, who are old-time socialists, were like, well, this is great. This is great. We've got a Labour government who've got, 12, 15 years in the bag. We can actually go to town here. We can nationalise everything. We can just completely unstitch at our leisure all of the execrances of Thatcher, of the major years. This is great. Out with the cigars, and bring back a proper socialist, equal UK. And of course, what doesn't happen, does it?
No.
And Celtic and football, in terms, because of their status in Scottish football, because of very good economic husbandry, and because of the relative weakness compared to other Rangers teams of the current Rangers team, we've got a free pass into Europe and probably into the Champions League most times. Therefore, I think that affords us an element of risk, entitled risk.
Well, there should be. There most definitely should be.
And I'm not saying we should be paying 10, 12 million players 12 million fees on players that, might not. I'm not saying that at all. All I'm saying is that maybe a little bit of speculation, not in the £2-3 million, but maybe in the 7-8 million.
Yeah, because that would smack to every other Celtic supporter out there as ambitious.
Yeah,
and I think Celtic were maybe certainly about 3 players short of that and making an impact in the Champions League this season.
And I know it doesn't. I know it doesn't always happen. You like to think if you're spending that amount of money on a player that you've done your homework on the player. But I remember when we bought Harold Bratt back. I was rejoicing. Because I'd seen him play for Rosenborg, and Rosenborg had performed miles beyond where they should have been. And I'm thinking we're getting this Norwegian hero, folk hero, who has personally put big teams to the sword. He's going to be great. It's the right climate for him. He's kind of speaks English. He'll fit right in. It didn't really happen for a wee man, although, the fee alone was paid back with that goal against St Johnstone in 1998. Yep. But so that happens. I remember when we bought Thomas Gravesen. I remember listening. I remember where I was when I heard it in the radio, and I'm thinking, is this April the 1st? Somebody having a laugh here. Celtic have bought a player from Real Madrid who was playing in their first team last season and has actually had a few appearances this season, and he's still in their first team squad. What's going on here? And it didn't really happen. So I get that, every big outlay comes with a risk, but Celtic are far more stable financially than they were at those times, which I think affords us a limited qualified risk, or being entitled to take a limited qualified risk. But what do I know? I just turn up, pay my money. I contribute to all this. I just, sit down. And I'm saying all this, about being rebel without a cause and looking for accountability, but it doesn't happen because if we beat Rangers in January, we'll be happy for a couple of months. I'm part of the problem. I'm part of the problem.
I'm with Billy Connolly, a rebel without a clue. I'm laughing. My dog Paddy barked the minute you mentioned Thatcher. That was uncanny. He's sitting next to me in the bed. You mentioned Margaret Thatcher and he leapt off the bed and started barking. You could not make that up.
Brilliant.
Totally unscripted. Good on you, Paddy. At least you know politically where you stand. Good lad. It's mental. But yeah, and as much as I enjoy Celtic being domestically dominant, Kevin, and this year it might well shape up to be a tighter title race than in previous years. I think the January window could be crucially important for Celtic to guarantee that Champions League money again by guaranteeing yourself winning the title. And I'll be interested to see what the board actually do in order to arm Brendan Rodgers with finance to bring in the quality that he desperately craves. But the January window is the hardest window to try and bring in players, isn't it? But there might be a need for it because a lot of Celtic players will be going away to perform in the Asian Cup. So there is a kind of element of...
and we have to be alive to the fact there's no point in denying this. No point in trying to dodge the issue. But the fact is that Rangers have got an upgrade in terms of their manager. There's no two ways about it. And I know that with Rangers there's a lot of self-delusion with false dawns that some of our friends in the sporting press contribute to, because for whatever reasons. But this guy looks quite formidable, and we shouldn't be afraid of it. I still think we're favourites for the title, but there's no point in denying that he knows what he's doing. So we can't be complacent. Can't just think, oh, we're 5 points ahead. And of the 3 games against Rangers that are left, 2 of them are at Parkhead. So I would hope there's no complacency. And the reason why I'm saying that is because in the past, we've had directors and chairmen who just assumed that we would have a hegemony over Rangers. I mean, I'll go right back to 1986 when we won the league against all the odds, and Davy Hay went to the board saying, if we're going to compete with Rangers next season, because Graham Souness had come in, I need a couple of players, and one of them was Stevie Clark. Yeah. And Davy Hay was more or less told, well, you know, you'll just need to fund it out of your own pocket. And then the following season, 86, 87, we went to Christmas, we were ahead, but Davy Hay could see what was happening, you know, what was coming down the line. And he was told, and this is from Davy Hay's own mouth, he was told, what are you complaining about? We're at Christmas and we're a few points ahead, you know, just easy as she goes. And that was it.
I think he was knocked back for Stevie Clark, Joe McLaughlin and Pat Nevin, wasn't it? Those were 3 players that he specifically targeted and was told to fund them out his own pocket if he felt that strongly about bringing them in. And as you say, the inevitable happened. I think Celtic were 9 points ahead at one point and lost the league by 6.
We've got that, you know, it's part of the board's DNA. I mean, I was watching before we come on here, a video online of Fergus McCann talking about the building of the stadium and how he'd been told by Jack McGinn we didn't need season ticket holders because they were just a nuisance, because they're all just wanting tickets for Aberdeen and Rangers, and they make too many demands. And Fergus is going, well, you know, I'm building a 60,000 stadium, and the average attendance previous season was only 28,000. You know, build it and they will come, but you need to give them a sense of ownership. So we've got that complacency at board level in our DNA.
Yeah.
You look across the road and think, well, we'll always be better than them. Except we can't just assume that. You can't just assume that. There were certain Rangers people assumed, David Murray assuming we will always be better than Celtic. When the money was rolling in and Fergus came back and they were scoffing at him building 60,000 stadiums. And unfortunately, I think we have an element of that. So there we go. End on a high note. when it's international week, I mean.
Yeah, exactly. It just drags in international week. But listen, this is always the quickest hour of the day. 58 minutes we've been speaking for. You wouldn't know that, would you? So I can only tell that because there's a clock in my top left hand of my screen. So but there you have it. But ladies and gentlemen, I guess every time Kevin comes on, I always say that it's an education you learn. But it's just enjoyable, you know. I mean, it's just an enjoyable hour, you know, and I enjoy tuning the Fat Witty. So thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure.
On. Always appreciate it, and just that knowledge and wealth of experience, and
it's a wealth of experience of a misspent adulthood.
Yes, a misspent youth, and now it's kidulthood, isn't it? You know? So that kind of thing. But yeah, I guess both of our Celtic supporting lifespans can take in quite a lot of errors, you know what I mean? So sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes it can be a bad thing. You get hit with a Celtic da label, but I don't mind being a Celtic da, to be fair. I like comparing errors because
I've been a Celtic da since I was 24.
I probably have myself as well, to be fair, but there you go. But as we say every time we're on, every day we're on, subscribe to the Celtic Way website if you enjoy what we do, everybody. It costs you £4 for 4 months. That's the latest offer just now, or £18 for a yearly subscription. Take out a yearly subscription. It's excellent value for money. You can help support top quality football journalism covering the club you love and you hit that subscribe button, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Thank you for your comments. I try and read as many out as I can, but when you've got the likes of Kevin on, I just enjoy the chat.
I'll shut up for a few minutes. Just let me know.
We do. We let them all. Thomas Burns saying, very quick show today. I think that's I hope that's a compliment in terms of the fact that he's enjoying it. And if you want to check them out, MPH Group, we big up our sponsors. MPH Group sponsor the Celtic Way morning briefing, post-match and pre-match videos as well. And also subscribe to the YouTube channel. But we say thank you to MPH Group for all the plumbing, heating, kitchen and bathroom needs and the Navian boiler promotion. Check out the links in the description of this video. Great show, guys. Liz Miller says, there you go. Not eras, Tony, it's eras. Era, whatever way you want to say it. It's tomato type stuff, eh? They're a knowledgeable bunch, Kevin. Don't lie away with them. You know. Thank you, Tony and Kevin, reminding me of things I'd forgotten. There you go, eh? But hey, it's we are everything to all men and women. A broad church on the Celtic Way morning briefing. We like to think so anyway. But all that left for me to say is, Kevin, thank you very much. Tune in every Tuesday. You'll see Kevin. I'm pretty excited about that. As you can tell, I'll tell my face as well. Pete McGee, no, I'm right, Tony. Era. There you go. Great show, lads, says Kaiser. Cheers, Kaiser. Hope you're well, mate. But lots of love for you, Kevin, and the comments.
It's all returned. There's nothing better than chatting away for an hour about the Celtic.
Yes, indeed. The leather belts, the fuzzy felts, the Marjorie. You can't beat it.
I used that in a message last week.
Excellent.
The Marjorie.
Tell
you the response I got.
Fair many 1 from 3. I love it. You can't beat a bit of rhyming slang. It's great. There you go. But hopefully that set you up, guys, for your day Tuesday. You know, the international break it's always long, but it's when you get guests like Kevin on, it's pretty enjoyable. We talk about Celtic and a myriad of stuff. And
who's Scotland playing anyway? Is it
Norway?
Lithuania? Norway, Georgia?
At some point.
Right.
I probably should know. We're getting all blasé about it, Kevin, because they've qualified. You know what I mean?
Aye.
They're playing Georgia on Thursday and Norway on Sunday.
Yeah. Great.
Georgia on Thursday, Norway on Sunday. So there you go. Hazel Finn coming and telling us Georgia. Thanks for that, Hazel. You know, that's the problem when you're too busy Celtic centric. Everything else kind of takes a back seat, doesn't it? But there you have it. But thanks, Kevin. Really enjoyed that. Hope you did at home.
My pleasure.
We'll be back tomorrow, myself, and I think it's young Aidan will be back tomorrow with the Celtic Way morning briefing for Wednesday. But take care, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you all tomorrow.